Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining the DTR Sea Freight Project webinar, the final and last webinar. This is a joint MPI and customers hosted by KBAF webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we start, I would like to remind you that there must be no discussion of prices, surcharges, fees, costs, particular customers, revenues, market share, or any other commercially sensitive topics. In particular, you are reminded that no market agreements have been or will be decided at meeting of KBAF, whether they involve prices, amount, or areas. So the MPI team and Emma Walsh will take us through today's webinar. Welcome. Thank you very much. Sylvester, you may want to start.
Yes, thank you, Corinne. Thank you, KBAF, for hosting this webinar for the DTR Sea Freight Project. On the call, I've got Emma from who's representing you on KBAF, and we've got the regular DTR team. So thank you for joining this session. This is our last formal webinar from the DTR Sea Freight Project. Now, the purpose for today is basically to go through again an update of where we're at with DTRs, call out some key learnings, points, and so on, and then touch upon what the future looks like and how we hand that back to business as usual. What we also want to do in today's webinar is gather a feedback survey as part of our engagement to do a check on how the project performed. So before we open up for questions at the end, I will open up, Corinne will open up the survey, which you can respond on Zoom. So your feedback is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. Right, as you all know, DTR for sea freight has been implemented on the 3rd of July. It's going pretty well. We've had good uptake from our stakeholders, from submitters like yourselves, and as you know, DTR is now required to move uncleared sea freight. Now, the focus in these months, as you know, we are in the transition phase from the 3rd of July to the 6th of October, where DTR will be fully mandated. Now, our focus in these 3 months is to basically make sure that submissions are coming through correctly. We are assisting everyone who is joining the DTR train to be well trained and educated on all things DTR, trying to solve their problems. And at the same time, we are onboarding the remaining ports and shipping companies so that we have all New Zealand ports as DTR active, and we have all shipping companies who bring in imports to New Zealand as DTR compliant. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, I'll hand over to Daniel to give us a view of where we're at with different phases.
Thanks, Sylvester. So for FAK movements from port to CCATF, here are 2 key messages. 1, MPI requires the following attachments to be submitted. These are the quarantine declaration, bill of lading, and manifest. Overall, I've been very pleased with the incoming submissions with attachments in August. The results in the next slide speak for itself, especially when compared to July. So please keep attaching, and let's aim to be better next month. 2, quarantine declaration to be entered on the lodgement correctly as per what is on the physical QD document. Example, yes, yes, no, no, no. Make sure the QD is entered against each consignment correctly. For this one in particular, we are still seeing multiple submissions without the QDs entered, resulting in the container being held. This is definitely an area for improvement. If we can please focus on getting the QDs entered correctly against each consignment over the coming weeks, they'll be much appreciated. DTR is requested for movement off port with no documents attached. As mentioned, well done on this result for August. we had a total of 1,657 submissions recorded as of yesterday. Out of those, only 53 submissions had no documents attached. For September, let's improve again and target below 25. By the end of the year, I would expect us all to be on single digits. This dashboard represents the total FAK applications per month, total FAK applications and containers by company, applications and containers by port of discharge, NZAKL, NZTRG, and NZLYT. 98% of FAK imports take place through these ports. Overall, we've received 6,772 DTRs and 6,183 containers have been moved as at 29th August. Status of ports. The following ports in green are DTR active. For the ports that are in orange, who are either in testing or in development, at this stage, these ports will need to be DTR active by Friday, 15th September. Comms were recently distributed out and put onto the customs website about this new revised date. We are working very closely with the 5 ports to have them DTR active as soon as possible. Once active, comms will be sent out and the customs website will be updated, so please keep an eye out. We expect to have Northport live this week. The master terminal ports are towards the end of their development and will start testing shortly. So the pilot partner status and the status of submissions. As of today, the FAK volume on DTR is 97.19%, so amazing result. The number of FAK submitters has reached well over 100, and all FAK top 20 submitters are onboarded.
Yeah,
so
if
now,
on that slide, sorry, Daniel, I'd like to point out on that slide, our success criteria for DTR was to get 80% of volume through on DTRs. We've reached this amazing figure of 97.2%, which is a testament to you guys, for all of you for jumping on board and doing the right thing and helping us out. And the other metric we had was it would be good to get our top 20 on board. We've got over 100 submitters, which is an amazing result too. So well done to all of you.
Thanks, Sylvester. I agree, amazing result. So now I'll pass on to Carlos to take us through the DTRs for movement of devanned LCL consignments between CCA and TFs.
Cool, thanks, Daniel. So in terms of the LCR consignments moving between CCA TFs, everything's kind of ticking along quite nicely. We haven't seen too many issues being raised around this process. Everyone seems to be getting the head around it and getting on board. Again, it's very similar to just doing your FAK container movement, say from a port to a facility. You're entering a lot of data, a lot of the same kind of data in your lodgement. I'll just say, again, just those things to be aware of is making sure that for the LCL movements, you're not entering your quarantine declaration. You don't have to enter your documents for those movements. And just to be really make sure that the goods location that you put in isn't going to necessarily be the port. It's going to be the facility where that container is unpacked. So it's going to be that starting point for that individual consignment, which is going to be moved under that DTR. So just bear in mind when you're doing submitting those lodgements for these LCL movements, just remember that location of goods needs to be where the container is being devanned and where the LCL is starting to move from. We still have that one small issue with going to a small group of facilities which are CCA tests, which aren't approved for sea containers, which is throwing up this error. We currently have a solution for this, and it's in test. So we're just in our test environment. So we're just going through the testing phase of that to make sure that it kind of works. And we're just working through that process at the moment. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll have a solution for that. But if you do receive that error, then you still can use the old process of using your customs collector's permit to move that under bond. Cool, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos and Daniel. So this is one update we want to give, which is an issue that's coming up for this particular type of movement. Now, this movement is where a container is brought into one port and it transships from that first port to another port. And an import declaration has been submitted for the first port and it's cleared at the first port. Unfortunately, at the second port, when the agent or where the freight forwarder goes to pick up that container, the second port does not have any visibility of that clearance, because the DTR that is presented by the shipping company enables it to be put on hold at the second port. So that's the issue. There are two steps. If you want to just go to the next slide for a second, Daniel, because that might explain it better. So the movement of the cargo is the vessels coming in, say, use this example of Tauranga and the second port being Littleton. The port of discharge, the shipping company or the agent for that shipping company will submit a DTR where the port of discharge is Tauranga, the location of goods is Tauranga, and the transit destination is Littleton. Now, what happens is that if the customs broker submits an import entry for clearance at Tauranga, Littleton has no idea. As a result of the DTR process, because they get a message from the DTR, that is Littleton gets a message, they put a hold on that container, believing it's an import container. Now they have no idea of that clearance. Now the way around it is that when you're submitting your import entry for port of discharge Tauranga, your location of goods should be changed to Littleton. And that would fix up the problem, because that clearance would also go to Littleton and you wouldn't have that issue. So I don't know if you want to add anything to this, Emma, if I've said it clearly enough.
Nope, that sounds pretty clear to me. Just for anybody that is possibly finding this a bit hard to understand or needs a bit more clarification, just reach out through to the DTR mailbox and they'll send it through to me. But it's pretty straightforward. Anything, yeah, especially in this example where it is going to be transshipped down like via a coastal vessel down to Littleton. If you're doing your import entry, by all means, put your port of discharge as Tauranga if that's what your bill of lading says, and your destination is Littleton, but put the location of goods as the port of Littleton so that message can go through to them for the final release. If, for example, your port of discharge is Littleton, then you would just clear that straight to Littleton anyway. So I guess it goes on how that shipment has been routed.
Yeah, so this is we're going to give this to a Littleton port as well, because they're the next ones going live shortly, and this is a good visual plus information for them, for their customer service team to respond to these sort of questions. So this will be up on our FAQs as well on the customs website. So in case you have any questions, you can go to that place. Right. If you need more information, our project DTRC information page is updated at all times. So that has the information on what are the DTR active ports, and very soon we might start adding the shipping companies who become DTR active. So that's work in progress. FAQs, as we come across questions that come through our mailbox, we tidy them up and we come up with a formalized answer if the same question keeps popping up, and we turn that into an FAQ, and you will find it on the FAQ page. Now, the focus of the project team over the next month is to start weaning off from project mode and going into BAU mode. Now, we've as per the plan, we will finish. Let me rephrase that. DTR will transition phase will end on the 6th of October, by which time we are expecting shipping companies and port companies to be DTR active and compliant. What happens after that is that we will slowly start moving all the first point of query to the TSW user support mailbox. and that will be where the questions will go. The DTR mailbox will be monitored, but the responses will start coming back from TSW user support. So your generic first point of contact will be TSW user support. And they will route the emails as required. If it's a bit more of technical or a process nature, it will go to the correct teams within MPI and customs. You have to follow your current processes when dealing with the service delivery team or even the technical team in customs. So that bit will not change. The project team I'm thinking at this point, will disband by the end of October. That's the thinking. However, what we want to do is formalize all these bits and pieces and then come back as a proper formal email of how that support will be handed over to business as usual. So that's the plan. This is just giving you a brief overview of what that might look like, but keep an eye out for formalized comms on how we transition to business as usual. Thank you, Daniel. Before we go to questions, what I'd like to do is open up the engagement survey, which Corinne will do. Thanks, Corinne. And it'll really help if you can give us your feedback. It should be popping up on your screens, and we'll give you a couple of minutes to answer that.
Just while people are finishing up on the survey, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for really embracing the DTR. As it was mentioned before, there's over 6,000 DTRs that have been submitted so far, and that number is only going to climb. That's 6,000 BACCs that are no longer holding up the queues. And I do realize that we are going into the BMSB season again, but having those not holding up the queue means that the target evaluators can have a look at what they really need to look at, and this just ticks on in the background. So thank you so much for coming on board.
Yeah, I think most have answered. So thank you for your responses. And like Emma said, thank you for your support. And thank you, Emma, for your support of the project team. I'll open up for questions now. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box. Thank you for that comment, Rolik team.
Hopefully everybody knows what they're doing now with the no questions. That's a good sign, I think.
It's a good sign. You can say that by looking at our mailbox as well. We don't see a lot of repeat questions
No.
of the same thing. So I think we've passed that phase where people have teething questions. It's everyone's embraced it quite well.
Yeah, we do have one that's just come through. When a CCA or TF won't release on a DTR and want a BACC, who is the point of contact, or who do we contact the CCA in the right direction? I would just explain to them about the DTR mailbox for now. If that's an issue, I also would like to know who the CCA is that's not releasing on a DTR, because it's definitely a training issue. I know that Sylvester and his team have done a lot of training with the CCAs over the past sort of 6 months, so they should all be well versed on their requirements. But in your first instance, I would state urgent, obviously, in your DTR email, and that inbox is monitored at a live state, so it would get answered pretty quickly.
And I think in the immediate term, it'll be good to know who those CCAs are, which aren't following a DTR process. So maybe it's an education thing. We're happy to pick it up earlier the better. If you can let us know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that you would like to add from a customs perspective, Mark? I can see you're on the call.
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Any comments from Carlos or the others from MPI?
Nothing really from me. It's just good to see, good to see the kind of but the types of questions, like you mentioned before, coming through to the inbox, slowing down a bit, like those repeat questions that we had in the beginning. And just a big thanks to everyone on the call and everyone part of the DTR project. It's I think it is actually quite a big undertaking with a lot of different stakeholders involved that I think a few people don't quite understand how bigger kind of project it was. So it's really good to have everyone's engagement. So thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, if there aren't any further questions, I'd like to give you half an hour back, and thank you again for joining this call. This is our last DTR call that's run by DTR project. If there is a need for further assistance, or if you think there is a need for another webinar like this, feel free to reach out to the DTR mailbox and we can always organize for something again. Thank you once again, Kabaf, for your support of this project. And thank you, Karine, for all the administrative work you do in the background for pulling this together and making it happen. So thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.